Sir Harold Evans, the campaigning former editor of the Sunday Times newspaper, has died of heart failure.
The 92-year-old was one of the most influential media figures of his generation, behind major investigations, including the exposure of the Thalidomide scandal. Amal Rajan has more.
Harold Evans in the early 1980s, after he'd left Britain for America. On both sides of the Atlantic, he achieved success as a brilliant journalist and editor. But his greatest triumph had been to turn the Sunday Times into a campaigning newspaper. And his greatest campaign was that on behalf of victims of thalidomide. The paper won them increased compensation and scored a landmark victory for freedom of the press in the European Court, to the editor's delight.
Tremendous. It's the most important judgment for not only for the freedom of the press, but for the citizens' right to know in England. The most distinguished group of judges have told the British government, reform the laws. They've got to do it now.
After 13 years, he was banged out by the Sunday Times printers, a measure of the esteem in which his staff held him. Rupert Murdoch had bought the paper and asked Evans to edit the Times. It didn't work out. A year later, he'd resigned, claiming the proprietor wouldn't give him the editorial independence he'd been promised. He found America more congenial, later becoming a US citizen.
The Americans are enormously welcoming and open. You wouldn't, I don't think, get quite the same thing in London.
By now, he was overshadowed in the public eye by his younger, more glamorous wife, Tina Brown. She was the fashionable and sometimes controversial editor, first of Vanity Fair and later of The New Yorker. They were a power couple. From the Clinton White House down, they were at all the best parties. Eventually, Harold Evans was knighted, a fine journalist and editor who'd combined technical brilliance with a crusader's belief in the duty of the press to make the world a better place.